Okay, welcome to the ACI-LAC and Munich Airport International webinar called Living Innovation with Munich Airport International. In today's webinar, we have the pleasure to count with our speaker, Martin Kamler, Vice President Corporate Development and Operations at Munich Airport International. Before we begin, we had like to remind you that simultaneous interpretation is available. You can choose either Spanish or English from the globe icon in the Zoom menu. If you prefer not to hear the original audio, simply click on Mute Original Audio. As previous webinars, the chat function is disabled. And if you would like to submit any questions for the speaker, please send it to the email address shown on the screen, info@aci-lac.io, and we'll address the questions during the Q&A session at the end of the presentation. So now I would like to hand it over to Martin.
Thank you very much, Carla. And yeah, good morning to everybody. I think it's morning in most of your locations at the moment. So good morning or buenos dias. Maybe very quick to the ones that don't know my background yet fully. I'm with Munich Airport for 16 years now, went through several departments, and since about 10 years working for the Munich Airport International, so the international segment of Munich Airport, and had been myself as well engaged in several projects also throughout the Latin American region, such as Brazil, for Belo Horizonte or Rio de Janeiro, or for the airports in Honduras and cargo terminal in Salvador, and also managing engagements from here for Trinidad and Tobago currently, and other Caribbean locations. So yeah, good morning from my side. I will come right to the topic here, living innovation. Why did I choose that title to talk about innovation today is as I do not want to go through, of course we will touch them, technologies, AI-based solutions and so on as a focus point. We will go through them, use them. I will use them as an example as well to explain you what I want to focus today on, and that is selecting the right approach, how to ensure that you are innovative as an airport. Innovation is something that came up in the last couple of years, especially after the pandemic, after many airports in the world realized that there's a backstall on improvement projects, productivity enhancement projects, passenger experience improvement projects, and then with the experience of digitalization, AI upcoming, the need arose that, and the word arose in our industry that we have to be more innovative, that innovation, investing in innovation, dealing with innovation is key. The core problem, and that will be the first part of the of my presentation, and you can go to the next slide, please, is that we experience and we experience here at Munich Airport, but as well in our engagements in our airports that we operate globally or support, we are consulting projects globally, is not necessary that we don't know the innovation, that we don't know the technologies, the solutions, the applications that we might have to use. The problem that we experienced here in Munich and at airports around the world is how to select, how to prioritize, and also how to implement the processes and an organization that is continuously thinking about innovations, applications, technologies, and is understanding what is required to actually not just talk about them, but also knows and at the end also is enabled to implement them in the right manner. And that, of course, in the face of limited resources, limited budgets, and of course, short timelines and ongoing operations that we're all facing, obviously, at our airport operations. So I will start, as I said, next slide, please, with a short introduction about where I'm coming from, so you better understand what I'm referring to when I lead you through this webinar. So, as you know, Munich Airport has its base in Munich, obviously, and via Munich Airport International, its international outreach operating, for example, the Terminal A in Newark. We have IMD Sigma in-house, airport planning department or the airport planning focused subsidiary that supports us with airport planning topics. Um, but as I explained before, so we realized at Munich Airport, and that is maybe something specific that you are less touched with in the Latin American region, but we realized, especially after the pandemic, a huge problem due to staff shortages. We laid off reduced the amount of HR of staff during the pandemic that and had to face a major issue then after starting to recuperate the traffic, but also recuperate in efficiency enhancement projects, innovative projects, introducing new technology and systems that we don't have the sufficient capacities to do so. So we needed to prioritize, and that is something that I will share with you how we embedded that at Munich Airport. At Newark, and that's why I brought that example here, we had a complete different situation. We still had a clear push from the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey that asked us, hey, we want to operate and we want to have a terminal that is operated at the latest state of innovation, in requesting the deployment and the successful use of new innovation. But that was quite a challenge. So we had a project, a new terminal to be opened. We needed to prepare that to be ready for operation. We needed to define to the system suppliers to tell them exactly what needed to be done. And then we had to organize a huge change management project because nobody that we was at the terminal and the current operational team was used to work with certain systems, certain processes, and so on. So we faced a complete different challenge how to be innovative. And based on that, I will share my experience with you on the next slides. Next slide, please. So what we are trying to do at Munich Airport is use and leverage our international know-how and experience, not just about which, let's say, technology solutions and system applications, AI solutions work well. Gather experience, obviously, about those during implementation projects throughout the world, to then understand, how we do that best at Munich Airport, but as well try to help with the overall process, understanding of how do we evaluate the applicability of a solution to solve a problem, and learn regarding the process. So the major gain we have out of that, and the experience I want to share with you today, is not necessarily about the knowledge about, okay, is that a good solution? I give you an example. Are automated passenger boarding bridges a good solution or not, and who are the respective suppliers, and how long does it take to implement them? Of course, that's a valuable know-how, but even more how to select and decide if that is really the right solution for Munich Airport at the right time where we're standing at. And obviously, we try as well to, and that you see here on the right side of the slide, to support the overall innovation attempt of the industry by providing a baseline in Munich for piloting and analyzing and testing certain new solutions before they even come to the market. Next slide, please. Here we have a selection, and in the background you see the overall master plan of Munich Airport, just to give some orientation where certain technologies and solutions are orientated in, and where we are focusing at Munich Airport at the moment is in the area of terminal operations and airside operations. You see here quite some technologies regarding autonomous operations. Is this automated boarding bridges? that we are analyzing here. We have not installed them yet. There is autonomous boarding bridges, for example, in Japan, but we know as well in your region, we can see it in Peru, we see it in Lima, we have it in LAX. China actually is in Diwapu International Airport is, I think, to my knowledge, the most advanced airport globally at the moment in regards to the installation of those boarding bridges. But we analyze those. Virtual queuing is a topic that had been in Germany at least very successfully installed in Berlin Airport, providing huge gains in especially in security checkpoint capacity and passenger experience. We see biometrics, a topic that we are following up at Munich Airport and constantly installing as well, is one of the major topics to also enhance passenger experience and capacity use. One thing that we brought to life with the opening of Terminal A in Newark was a remote apron tower solution. We actually convinced the owner of the terminal to go away from the classic tower setup and rather invest in a full virtual setup to run that we are now operating since a couple of years quite successfully. We see electric GSE all over the world. One example is here, Sao Paulo. One thing that is just on the brink of coming up is autonomous ground handling or autonomous GSE operations. There are several companies bit by bit piloting and exploring that option. Huge potential in the next years, also analyzed. Autonomous shuttles are now also coming up. We're analyzing that on the land side at the moment here at Munich Airport. Brussels is a step farther. They already tested that on the air side. Also something that is on the brink of being industry ready to be engaged in a larger scale. We have certain robotic solutions since a couple of years now being tested, like the Snackbot in Munich, mainly to really test how it works in between the interconnection, interrelation with the passengers to be used with very positive experience. And in general, technologies, tracking technologies proved to be very successful in application and usage because the technology is ready and it helps to not just detect the assets, or let's say in that case with PRM asset tracking the wheelchairs where they are, but also you can follow up the exact ways they go when they are into operation and then feed your overall AI-based solutions to analyze operational processes within the terminal, but as well on airside. Then everybody of new for sure knows the digital turnaround management solutions from ACI-LAC that we are as well obviously looking at and setting up in Munich. CCTV-based turnaround management, very efficient solutions, but complex to be set up, not just from an infrastructure perspective, but also from a system perspective, and autonomous solutions around security, especially fence controls, such as, for example, the solution they have applied at Toronto Pearson. So that is an overall outlook. What you don't see here, because it's embedded in everything, are the digitalization solutions that are one of the core and most complex elements to be installed in existing airport environments. I'm talking about data pooling. I'm talking about IoT solutions that facilitate a lot the overall maintenance approach, but also give live information about the availability of core systems, security checkpoints, checking gates, boarding gates, but as well in availability of boarding bridges, etc., etc., etc. The overall availability of operational data in live environments to do live queue management, live flow management, to do AI-based shift planning for staff, etc., etc., etc. All these elements, and I will come later to that, but maybe a quick outlook, do not just require the installation of a solution. You don't just need to buy an application or a software and feed it with data. To successfully apply that and also operate it, it requires, in addition, the availability of data, and not just via, let's say, complicated created interfaces and links to share data in between interfaces, but also the availability of data output to the respective stakeholders to be used at. So I give you one example: digital turnaround management is working very successfully at the end if you are able to share that data in a live environment to your ground handling companies, but as well to the airlines, and maybe as well to certain authorities. And that needs to be organized, that needs to be contractually, commercially aligned with those stakeholders, and that brings the overall complexity. It's not just the solution itself. So that just to give a little bit of a context to allow also to better understand the different approaches on the following slides. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So the next slides deal about how did we organize us here at Munich Airport at the home base to allow a continuous, first of all, a continuous and relatively agile approach to deal with innovation. And that is not just about detecting the need of innovation. It's rather about understanding the different needs throughout the operational, commercial, technical departments, understand where do we have, with all these needs, and especially in the digital level, do we have similarities and consistencies in the requirements that these innovations or these new applications can actually successfully installed and implemented, to understand and then build up. And that's the responsibility of the digital community, as we call it here, to define what is the required overall basis that we require to actually allow a successful implementation of the different types of applications and systems that we need throughout the innovation life cycle. And as well, it is the community and the group of people that is responsible then to present to top level management what priorities need to be set and what are the interdependencies in between certain applications to be successfully implemented, and certain, let's say, groundwork, legwork before that needs to be done before to be actually able to install those, and to give an overall picture from the overall airport perspective, and do not just end, in comparison, if you have your different departments, operations department, commercial department, each of them fighting for their innovation and technology solutions to be prioritized, you might end in a situation where you then give the prioritization to the one fighting best and having the best arguments in the moment, but you lose out in really understanding what are the right priorities to be set to be also midterm able to continuously innovate your overall airport setup. That's why we created this digital community from 47 different teams, so from 47 different departments from all over the airport, including the involvement of stakeholders, such as one of our main airlines here at Munich is Lufthansa, and continuous and also pushing them and making them responsibility to execute projects. Next slide, please. So what, for example, just to give some examples, what this, they worked on, for example, they worked on the overall biometrics concept, and not just, looking at it from one terminal perspective, but from the overall terminal perspective and looking that over the whole passenger journey, the PRM tracking, asset tracking topic, the snackbot topics, but also process mining. The ones of you that don't know the expression process mining, this is a data-based, AI-based approach to analyze operational, for example, can be applied to any process in your company. But in that case, we applied that or applying that for operational processes, for example, inbound or outbound baggage processes, to do a database analysis of deficiencies and capacity analysis to improve the system, improve the overall use of capacity and so on. Also database approach that we are applying at the moment. We have defined an overall innovation strategy together with our core partner, Lufthansa, that we call Premium Innovation Hub, to also jointly work on that, because major innovation steps forward and also major, let's say, implementation and successful use of certain applications or new technologies, we experience that it's only possible if you do that with your core stakeholders, core clients, core airlines together, because you need to align and come to agreement to exchange data, to share data. You need to align on certain commercial terms, on IP topics and so on, so that it really is recommendable if you have a core airline operating or a core stakeholder, that you work on certain projects from the beginning and also embed that in an overall joint and strategic approach. Next slide, please. Yeah, what we do as well, what helps as well, is external knowledge exchanges. So it is very important, and I think ACI is one of the best examples. There's several ACI innovation collaborations, the ACI Innovation Forum here in Europe, for example, that is run very well to really bring airports together and bring the right people of the airports together to continuously exchange and also help exchanging about how to approach innovation in general, but as well about specific solutions that are applied. There is a lot of efficiency gained, and I think you're doing that anyway. But I only can underline that every opportunity I have to always use the opportunity to contact a partnering airport or another airport directly if required, to better understand certain solutions and the challenges that came with it before starting to roll out the topic yourself. Next slide, please. Yeah, one additional topic that is, I would say, relatively unique here at Munich Airport, and also is set up besides others due to the need of becoming more innovative at Munich Airport, is the lab campus that we installed here. The lab campus, in fact, is a group of buildings that are designed to allow companies not just to get office spaces, but also to have additional spaces like laboratories, exchange rooms, and is set up in a way that you allow different organizations to facilitate the exchange and joint collaboration. And if you go to the next slide, please, it is set up in a way. Next slide, please. It is set up in a way that we will not allow any interested company to rent spaces, but only companies that have a major, let's say, interest and a major core in their operations or in their teams that they want to locate in those offices that deal with innovative technologies, innovative processes that come from educational entities, to boost and foster cross-industry collaboration. Obviously also bring very talented, young and innovative, interested in innovation, interested talent and people towards the airport, and interest them for the topics, and therefore as well bring an additional boost in to help the overall airport development and community to be more innovative. When we go on the next slide, we see the current companies that are renting spaces here. So we have the Deutsche Flugsicherung, that is the ATC operator, so the air traffic control operator in Germany. We have Lufthansa aviation training. We have AmpliMind, that is a software development company, and we have Exotech, another startup collaborating in between. I think it's Lufthansa and Audi, and we have our airport academy located in, and soon we have the Technical University of Munich placing certain departments there that are focusing on aviation, obviously, but also sustainability, robotics, autonomous vehicles, it's a secure sustainability, and so on and so on. So that should that is the type of companies we are placing with that within that lab campus. When we go on the next slide, please. I want to now go maybe directly the next slide. Roughly, how did we now also bring this, let's say, overall setup into these ideas and this concept into life? The first thing we actually did was to really understand or define, first of all, where we want to get to. And that's why I selected that slide, although it's a little bit old, I have to be honest. It's already two years old. But we wanted to be clear about, okay, when we talk about innovation, how do we measure that? And in which categories do we measure that? To be also clear, to have a top-down target. What does that mean? Or how do we say that we are actually sufficiently innovative, sufficiently modern, and so on? And try to also embed that in the overall group strategy, and therefore we used that structure. So we defined different targets, how we want to measure, how our processes should look like, what the strategy has to look at, and so on, and measuring that constantly. And based on that, develop clear actions, how we want to embed that. Next slide, please. So besides, let's say, the organizational structures that we set up to be able to, push and develop the organization in a way to the organization itself, by its existing processes, is enabled to deal with new applications, new technologies, that it comes out of our, the drive out of our digital community, that new applications, new solutions are discussed as the answers to our operational issues and problems. We also decided to go a second approach, a second angle in addition to the organizational angle, and that is what we called a future concept of operations. We chose that because we are not just an existing airport, organically grown over several years, with all the weight that you collect over those years, that you all for sure know from your own airport organizations, your backpack that you have in terms of certain things that just developed, never were properly documented, never developed further, and now need to be broken up. We developed an angle in which we came from the future approach, and said, okay, let's look at how we want to have our airport operating in about 15 years time, and defined how we want to see our processes being operated, which applications, solutions should be applied, and define target states for each and individual single process, and broke that down and compared it to the today's status, and defined where a complete concept of operations, defined a certain milestone-based development approach. For example, how do we want to develop baggage handling outbound process over the next year to achieve the respective target state? Same for passenger processes, same for cargo processes, same for employee processes, etc., etc., etc. And that is an additional approach that we took, and the results then were embedded in the overall roadmap, how to develop the operations forward, to enable us as well to bring that together with the overall development of the airport. Because one of the aspects that is important, and that is our definite experience, to understand that there is no best practice approach how to deal with innovation in general. It is a mix of different approaches, and this mix and the composition of that mix needs to be decided for each airport in a customized manner. So we are an airport that is developed. We have 2 terminals, we have our aprons, we have our 2 runways. So we are a developed airport that needs to do 2 things: ensure that whatever expansion we do is obviously, when we expand, when we invest a certain amount of money to build a pier expansion, to build a new terminal, we need to replace a certain system, that we obviously use that as a chance to innovate, to introduce a new technology, or we anyway need to replace something or expand something. But we as well obviously have to have a look at the existing operations, and when we innovate, when we introduce new applications, we have to make sure that this fits together and is operational with the existing processes and systems. And we of course have to make sure that we stay on track to our overall 15-year objective, where we want to end in. And in that overall analysis, need to or overall picture, need to ensure that we are investing the money that we have available in, and also the resources, internal resources we have available to implement those projects, are used in an efficient manner. And there, the future concept of operations approach proved us to be very helpful. Next slide, please. So in general, wrapping that up, I see, or we see, let's say, 5 types of operation, or 5 ways to deal with innovation. You can call it in different manners, and I will quickly go through those now to summarize a little bit what I have been referring to on the last slides. Next slide, please. So first one is the innovative organizational structure. So you have to, in our perspective, it is very recommendable to ensure that you have and that your organization as well has the right setup, the right processes, the right decision-making governance to enhance and foster thinking innovative and looking for innovative solutions for your problems. There is the concept of operations approach, where you look at your existing operations and analyze based on that, and based on your current problems and challenges and your specific characteristics of your airport, how to where to focus, where to set the priorities. Also that you look at the right solutions, and don't waste time looking at the whole package of potential applications and solutions, and focus on the right topics relatively fast. There's the concept of operations 2.0, or future concept of operations, how we call it here, where you come from a future picture and connect that process by process level throughout your complete concept of operations, and define clear lines of development for each operational area. Then I included as well new systems, ORAD, not just because we're dealing a lot with ORAD projects, but that where you innovate, you not just innovate by installation of new systems or applications, you innovate as well by change management, because you need to change the way people are working. You need to change certain, let's say, tools people are using. Is it work instructions? Is this SOPs defined? Is it certain ways you need to change the minds of the people how to use certain system? One of the core experiences we had, for example, for the Terminal A in Newark. And then you can also follow the proof of concept approach in which you provide your airport as an airport, a test bed for solution providers, and are jointly developing new technology and solutions. Next slide, please. So going into number one, as I said before, or the organizational structure is one core approach to ensure that your airport is innovative. You have to dedicate resources to that topic, explicit resources. Very often, and our experience is that we have seen in airport organizations is if you just put that on top to the operational team that is anyway very busy with running the day-to-day operations, is an additional busy to already take care about system replacements, maybe enhancements, expansions of airport infrastructure, to require them as well to think about implementing innovative solutions, digital solutions, and then have to organize with other departments, what needs to be done. IT department, for example, that this is even possible. You overload them, you will not possible. So an organizational structure that allows your team or teams to have certain resource availability is key. Of course, it requires budget. It requires maybe external advisors, but as well budget to maybe also move forward with certain pre-projects before you can actually start into a bigger tender process, for example, for automated boarding bridges or CCTV turnaround management to enhance, to speed up the decision-making process for a solution. And obviously, you need proper decision-making, proper processes, proper governance. You need to have this structure, reporting to high-level management at your airports, so you can make decisions, and those decisions obviously then also have to be valid, and people have to be made accountable for to also then follow those and execute the required actions. Next slide, please. In general, here we go. One more slide, please. Exactly. So there is a little bit of a differentiation of a smaller or larger airport. I think if you are a larger airport, you can go, for example, the setup that we have here at Munich Airport with a digital community, that you create an innovation team, innovation cluster, a working group that takes care of that. And you dedicate people, you define dedicated people with that, and you have a group of 10, 20, 30 people taking care of this. Of course, smaller airports will not be able to afford that, but you still can go a similar setup. You just need to ensure that these cross-functional teams that you set up are have a dedicated amount of time to spend to deal on those to deal with those topics and work on those topics. Next slide, please. Yeah, second part is ConOps. As I already explained, it is very often, it's like in general, what I would recommend always is to start when you think about digitalization, when you think about application of AI solutions and so on. Don't start with a solution. Start first with a clear understanding, what are your key problems or your key objectives, what you want to achieve. So start with your understanding of operations. What are the elements? What are the processes? What are the issues you have? Do you have a capacity constraint that you're looking at? Do you have larger issues with quality of ground handling operations, baggage operations? What are your key concerns? And understand those detailed, and then come up, based on that problem-based solution requirement, then have a clear look at the respective application or solution you want to apply. That helps a lot to not get lost in the overall situation or the overall offer that we have at the moment with 50 to hundreds different application providers, and really define your problem and then select the respective applications or suppliers that you think that they could solve your specific defined problems, and then let them solve your problem. Let them find the right application and way forward to bring exactly the solution you require. Next slide, please. Yeah, and that is just a classic process chart, where you see along the process now here, departing passenger process, where you could, you see a lot of potential innovation points where you can improve. And of course, all of them are somehow happening at every airport and will happen in the next 15 years, probably at all of our airports. But the question is, where do you at your airport start first? And with which part of that process you prioritize, and that needs to be based on your analysis of your current operational situation and need. And so that is what we want to explain with that point. Next slide, please. So the next one is the future concept of operation. I explained it already, and maybe we jump right away to the next slide. That gives a good idea of how we want to approach that. So how we developed that was to really go into a setup of new next rationale, and really go, and there you see a summary of the passenger check-in and bag drop process, and underneath of that you have a more detailed analysis about these processes that we had a look at. But here you see, okay, what is the future? The future that in one point all of us will operate, but the future you want to define for your specific airport. Then you compare that, also in relation to the availability of the solutions that are there on the market, and then understand. And then on that basis can understand, first of all, what is available, what is the logic way to the future. But then you can as well, based on this, align that with your overall development plan, as I mentioned before, of your airport. Because you will not, for sure not, or let's say it differently, it makes a lot of sense to maybe wait with, let's say, hybrid check-in counters installations, fully biometric, if you anyway plan to expand your terminal capacity, and will install, and then maybe order or do a project with one larger RFP for procuring those counters, bringing in new ones in the new terminal, training the people to use them, the airlines and so on, and then bit by bit replacing them as well, but do that as one larger attempt. So you will be able to reduce the capex, you have an organized timeline, you have a clear idea how you want to also do the change management in regards to that, and then you have like a more successful overall application of this innovative concept. So what I mean with that is, future concept of operation, or concept ConOps 2.0 approach for us means define your future state where you go, define your priorities, align it with the overall airport development plan, and then based on that, make your decisions where to focus on and where to set your priorities, and how that fits well into your overall airport development program. Next slide, please. Yeah, new systems, ORAD, essential. Yeah, and as I already explained at the beginning of the webinar, in my opinion, is that you do not forget that a new system, a new application, is requiring a lot of change management. And the bigger the step is, and for example, in Newark, we went from fully individualized airline-focused or airline individual airport or terminal operations to a full common use system with biometrics, with the application of an ITOCC, so an integrated operational center, with AI-based flow management, etc., etc., etc. So we went from 0 to 100, and within less than 1 year, and that required obviously a lot of change management, and that's what we call new systems ORAT. However you want to call it. Of course, if you take a new terminal or an airport into operation, you automatically have an ORAT, and the ORAT will then also take care of that and take special focus on that. But even if you just innovate within your existing infrastructure, you will require a well-organized change management process to ensure that you will have the effect of the positive effect of the new application that you actually also expect out of it from the beginning, and not after a long learning curve, because the people that work with that system understand it and know how to apply it. Next slide, please. You have as well, exactly, that's ORAT. Let's move on, or maybe on the next slide, because I already explained that. Yeah, you also have the proof of concept approach, and we are doing that, and that's why also that image currently for a landside autonomous bus operation together with a partner. That is something, of course, you are free to do. It's like there's no obligation to do it. It helps, of course, especially the supplier and the suppliers to be faster with the innovation, because they need to test their concepts, and they need to test it in a live environment. But as well, of course, it helps you to not just appear innovative towards your shareholders and other stakeholders, but as well to drive like the overall innovative thinking and the interest in your organization towards the topic, because it's also a good an interesting motivational factor to allow your people to work on something on site. And obviously it helps you detect on site your specific limitations and maybe topics that you still need to, and issues that you still need to work on regarding a specific application, because you, by proof of concept, you learn relatively fast where your limitations are. For example, autonomous or bus operations on the land side means as well you learn exactly where that works or not, where maybe intersections are that are difficult to handle with. Are there further limitations in terms of how roads are structured, etc.? Is there additional camera systems, etc., required? Is the vegetation actually allowing that in an operational way? So you learn a lot very early, and then are, of course, able to be one of the first movers when implementing such technologies. Next slide, please. Yeah, that's what I just explained. Normally, proof of concept goes to a 6-step approach. You start with the benchmarking to understand technology, you scope properly, you conceptualize, you develop a project plan, and then you go into the proof of concept. So you really have the technology on site, trying and testing it, and then you can go into a rollout if the proof of concept is successful. Good. Yeah. Last but not least, some lessons learned. So maybe I think I mentioned those as well throughout the presentation a couple of times. If you go right to the next slide, that's the last slide. 3 key topics for us with dealing with future technologies and innovation is focus on what makes you exceptional. So really focus on the topics you need to fix. You're already strong at, you want to foster focus on your specific characteristics of your airport, and use that and also involve that in your overall approach. It's not rocket science, but it's really something to recommend, because we also experienced that we got lost in all these different topics that were brought to us by suppliers, by externals, by also ourselves, that we have to look at everything at once. Is it all the AI-driven tools, all the IoT-driven topics, everything that's automized, and then you easily get lost and start working on everything in parallel, but rather organize yourselves, be clear what you really want and need at your specific airport, and then move on. Share as you do anyway within ACI. That's an excellent benchmark, but really be absolutely open and share any thoughts and topics. There is, in my opinion, no competition in between airports regarding being innovative and dealing with solutions. So as a lot of topics are just being rolled out, we are all dependent on sharing the experience with each other. Will help us a lot to be fast, learn faster, give the suppliers the respective feedback, and then apply and enhance those solutions on a fast track. And don't get married too young, yeah, despite maybe a general life advice. But joke aside, means if you realize that certain topics don't bring, in early in a conceptual stage, don't bring the solution, that you, or bring the fact and the value that you see, take it. Don't be afraid of stopping those at an early time. Think about it, reflect those. The learning curves are steep when dealing with those topics, and sometimes after a certain analysis time, conceptualization time, you realize, would be good, but we have so many limitations in applying that application or technology already in the conceptual discussion that it might be better to go on a different solution. Yeah, that would be it from my side, and I think I hopefully left some time to allow some questions from the audience. But thank you very much for giving me the time to present my thoughts here.
Thank you, Martin. Yes, I believe we have some minutes. So before we start, please remember to send your questions to info@aci-lac.aero, and then I will ask them here to Martin. So we have one question. You do not specifically mention any AI product, although one would say those are very popular, innovative solutions. Why is that?
Yeah, so AI, as I mentioned, is key. Yeah, so it's like, I think there's like probably most already have AI applications at all of the airports around the world, even if it's just simple language models that we use or applications that we use. But AI obviously is key. But you can't apply AI in an airport environment without having the basics right. So you have to, if you cut loose certain AI tools, you need to ensure that you have the data available, and you know how to use AI-driven results and how to distribute those towards the respective operational responsible people, as it within stakeholders in your team. So it's important to have the basics, and that's why I'm not going into specifics with AI solutions in specifics, or rather talked about what basics need to be fixed to be to allow yourself to successfully apply AI-based solutions.
Okay, we have another question here. It says, is a digital community from different teams or permanent members, or it will be on ad hoc basis based on projects while they have their other specific job scope?
It's actually both, but there's a core team that are permanent members. So there's actually three levels. There's a core team that are permanent members. They're really part of the department digital community. Then they are permanently deployed people from operations department, airside terminal, commercial, and so on. And then there are ad hoc people that are applied in addition to support the successful execution of projects.
Okay, thank you. I will do another one here. It says, how do you separate the noise, so many new innovative solutions, from the actual potential candidates?
Yeah, as I explained before, full understanding what you need, really where your problem lies, where to focus on based for your operations, for your commercial, your passenger experience development. Knowing as well how that fits in your overall development. So don't think about something now that you will need to install in 8 years, because then you build a new terminal, for example. So think about that later. The innovation will move on anyway in the technology. And then like really analyze, understand your problem, and exchange with other airports, learn from other airports as well about the problems, the required basics for certain applications, because certain suppliers will sell you always that their application will solve your problem, but you also need to understand, are you actually able to implement and use that application based on what you have and what you have on a database infrastructure, on your overall data sharing structure that you have, on the alignment you have with other stakeholders and airlines. Are they actually will they use the data? So you might need to do certain homework first before you actually can implement the application. So that I suggest to do, to be to know what to concentrate on and not to get overwhelmed by the sheer amount of potential solutions and applications and technical solutions.
Great. I don't know if you're able, we could do another one, the last one, and okay. What do you see as the biggest challenge in airport operations, and through which innovation or innovations, silver bullet versus silver bucket, do you see the best solution?
Yeah, I think that, let's say, the biggest there's challenge. What is the challenge? Is like definitely is the problem that different airports have. You have in Europe, you have a huge challenge about resources. We have huge problems to find enough people to work in security, to work in ground handling operations, etc. In other airports, you have other challenges. I think in what combines the different challenges in general is the need of improved resource management, improved and faster reaction on operational issues and topics, that you allow yourself to have data available that make your commercial operators more successful, knowing way better what type of passenger actually is walking by a specific store and with what kind of needs in which moment and how do they approach them, etc., etc. And that leads to one big challenge: is how do you make your airport like fully digital in a way that you have the right structure, the right basis to have as an airport operator access and a certain ownership of the data you collect in a proper structure, and are also able and allowed to, after you analyze that data, to share it, sell it, but at least share it with certain stakeholders, and have stakeholders participating. And we all know about the struggle we sometimes have with airlines sharing data, to really make a maximum use of that. And I think that's the biggest challenge. I think it's a lot easier to install an automated boarding bridge at a certain point. It's just certain technology that needs to be done, and you need to get certain approvals from the national regulator. But the biggest challenge is definitely the overall digitalization that then allows as well the proper use of AI-based solution, the data sharing approach, etc. I think that's in regards to innovative technologies, that is definitely one of the biggest challenge, maybe followed by the use of autonomous vehicles on the air side, because of the well-known safety implications that we see there. But the other one is big and takes time to organize your company, to create the basis that then allows you to really go into a full roadmap of bit by bit adding certain applications to have the best effect on your operations. So that's my short answer on your question.
Thank you, Martin. We want just to thank you for all. We have another question, but I will send it to you. Um, so I would just want to thank you for this valuable insights you have shared with us today, and thank all our participants for being here. If you have additional questions, please feel free to send it us by email, info@aci-lac.io. And we will follow up with Martin. Have a great day, and we look forward to see you in our next webinar.
Thank you all. See you soon. Bye bye.
Bye.